Niger and the sudden new awakening of Africa. The July 2023 Russian-African summit in Moscow was not good for France. President Putin used the occasion to educate African leaders about French oppression and atrocities. Dr. Arikana and others had been speaking out about the oppressive French role in the prevention of the growth and development of France's African community, while enriching itself from their resources. Within a few days, there was a coup in Niger. There had been other recent coups in French Africa, the Saharan border states that are called the Sahel region. However, the one in Niger was most painful, as the French had more to lose than in the others. It was one of Russia's way of punishing France for opposing them in its war in Ukraine. For the French it became a case of, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. With his back to the wall, and realizing that his success in Ukraine depends on African resources, to offset sanctions imposed by the Western Imperial Alliance, led by the USA. President Putin had a long overdue talk with the African leaders. Some came away convinced that they should be benefiting from their own resources. They should not be reliant on aid when they are actually richer than the countries that are stealing their wealth and crippling them with subsistence. The strategy of such aid, but not fair trade, is to keep Africans dependent, depowered, mentally helpless, and in chronic poverty indefinitely. Putin had already emerged as the most advanced Russian leader in geopolitics, and he gave a brief lesson to the attending African leaders. What the French-US alliance lost from the Niger coup and other French-African ongoing colonized states, they had hoped to take back from ECOWAS and other Africans by fooling and supporting them to engage in an endless and fruitless war against their neighbors that are seeking liberation. Such a war could never be in the interest of Africans, and only the mostly mentally enslaved African leaders, who are the worst leaders in the world, could be persuaded to engage in such stupidity. The democratically elected president had been a French puppet working against the interests and benefits of his own people and other Africans. The French government and its foreign legions should have no business or interests in Niger that is not beneficial to the citizens of that state. The same should apply to all other part of Africa where they are takers and racist exploiters. Their main interest should be to leave and keep their interests in France and French affairs. The Africans should mind their own business, and the French should do the same. The atrocities of France against its African community of ongoing colonialism could not last forever, and it had to end. They are now caught up in the changing times, and their mentally enslaved, corrupted and subnormal African puppet leaders cannot now save them. ECOWAS should be supporting the Niger coup leaders and their brave freedom fight from France for the welfare of the citizens of Niger. In fact, it is France and the other imperial racial offenders and oppressors of Africa that are terrorizing Africa and Africans and preventing progress and development that ECOWAS should attack. Their failure to do so is a sign that they are now very wrong and out of step with the majority of civilized Africans who support the freedom fighting coup leaders. It is also a sign that, for the vast majority of confused, corrupted and remotely controlled, anti-African leaders, the end is near. Instead of building proper hospitals and providing clean drinking water, improved medical and social care, improved education and other basic needs, ECOWAS was thinking of war with their fellow sufferers in Niger. They were not motivated to meet the needs of all Africans and the people of Niger, but to meet the predatory, corrupt and oppressive needs of the alliance of Euro-racial offenders that also hate, despise, devalue, humiliate and oppress them all. The French had simply ended their official colonization and continued with covert ongoing colonization. This left the French African community much poorer, retrograde, primitive and even more ignorant than the rest of Africa. The US government quickly sent a diplomat to try to cut a deal with the freedom-fighting coup leaders, but it was rejected. The ECOWAS and African Union had no real deal to discuss, as they were needed to front any attack on their fellow Africans who were trying to rid themselves of the US-led Western alliance of racial offenders, oppressors, and exploiters. However, African leaders have a long history of not acting in their own best interest and benefit, or that of their own people. They routinely act in the interests and benefits of their Euro-imperial racial offenders and mental enslavers. However, the very quick threat of the use of military force to restore the status quo in Niger by ECOWAS was a panic attack and knee-jerk reaction. They were reacting to the desperate panic and from France and the US-led alliance of racial oppressors. They used the African leaders as their mouthpiece, but ECOWAS soon realized that they had made a mistake. They had to back down when they realized that they had no support within Africa, thanks to remedial supplementary education and information via social media. The French and Western alliance of African racial oppressors, led by the USA, and the African leaders that they manage by remote control all panicked. The coup leaders of Niger had announced that they would put the arrested and deposed President Mohamed Bazoum on trial. This could reveal certain secrets to the common people and the world with tremendous effects. There were urgent discussions and compromises to avoid this risk of revealing world-changing international secrets. Dr. Arikana Kihambari-Quayo, PLO Lumumba, Julius Malema, Mia Amor Motley and many other scholars and intellectuals are constantly providing the necessary information for liberation to African leaders. But mostly their words are ignored, due to the effective mental enslavement and remote control of such leaders. Even if they know what is right, some habits are too hard to break. The fact that most African leaders still accept God in the false image of a European man, and angels as blonde blue-eyed females make things worse.